Good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight for the Stratford public meeting. My name is Glenn Jarrett, and I'm with Mundus Bishop, landscape architecture firm. And to kick off, I'm just going to open with a few introductions, and then we'll dive right in. So as I mentioned, my name is Glenn. I'm with Mundus Bishop, landscape architecture design firm. We have Allison and Hunter with Mundus Bishop as well. With the City of Westminster, we have Andy Murtha, Parks and Open Space Planner, and Alex Reeves, Operations Manager. With OV Consulting in the back there, we have Nora Nearwriter, who's doing outreach and communications. Jason Murray with JT Consulting, who's representing the Public Works Department. And then I failed to get names, but we have the localized team in the back who is doing all our audio and video connections for those online tonight. So appreciate you guys being here. So tonight we have a few items to go over. Past meetings we discussed largely existing conditions of Stratford Park and where the project was moving. We're in an exciting phase now where we began to develop conceptual designs to share with you all tonight. So we're going to go through a quick building deconstruction update. Jason's going to help us with that. And then we'll dive right into the Stratford Park expansion project. We'll briefly touch on project goals, a little bit about existing conditions and what we've been studying as potentials to keep in the park that could get stitched into the new design. What we've heard through public feedback through the first public meeting in September, as well as the neighborhood advisory group feedback, how that's translated to the designs. And then I'll walk through two design concepts for you all tonight with some photo boards here first, and then allow an opportunity to have an open house where the boards will be flipped around and opportunities for you all to comment on them and provide feedback. And then to wrap up this evening, we'll talk about timeline and next steps. So Jason, if you don't mind, to be able to give a quick building deconstruction update.
Hi, I'm Jason Murray with JT Consulting, and I've been helping the city out with some of the deconstruction work, some of the planning, costing, and salvage. So just to give you a quick idea of where we're at, we've currently been, City of Westminster staff has been in the facility salvaging what they can. We've taken doorknobs and lights and clocks and all of those things out of it to be used in other facilities. So that work is ongoing, but it is wrapping up. We're getting complete with that portion of it. So some of the other things that we've been doing are we're looking at setting the budget and the pricing for demoing or deconstruction of the building. So hopefully we'll have that here ready in about a month or two. And then our plan is that we take our part of the work, take it to council so that we're ready to go by, we're targeting June, for 1st of June for next year to start on the deconstruction work. So,
thank you. So getting into the park expansion project, briefly wanted to touch back and reshare the project goals that we discussed at the last public meeting. All of these are tied to how we're approaching the design and how we've approached the concepts that we've developed. The first being that the scale of this park is a neighborhood park. We acknowledge that this isn't a big regional park. It's tucked in a neighborhood. And with that, there's different programming and different scale of programming that is appropriate for this type of park. We also, as I'll share tonight, have some thoughts on how some existing infrastructure within the park can be saved. And so one of the goals that we have with the design is to make sure that the new programming and the existing really stitch in seamlessly together within that context. There are potential reuse of existing features that I'll get into in a little more depth that exist on the playground today and from the school. So those items we're still studying, but there's potential there that those can be reused. Safety is a main priority as well. Having visibility into the park, connectivity between it and the neighborhood, and making sure it's a safe space for all. And then part of that as well is looking at responsible development. So how can we design the park to conserve water, think about maintenance and maintenance durability long-term with city operations, and think about all those ongoing items that will affect the longevity of the park. So to briefly touch on existing conditions, here's some photos from site, and you can see the plan on the far side shows the hills and paths and the northern fields unhighlighted, and there's that dashed orange line through the middle. Those of you that are very familiar with the site, you know the school currently sits down on the south end of the site. And so we know that the fields are very well used. They get some practices and different events in them. And then we know that the hill and those paths are used as well for sledding and just general walking. With the North Fields, there's a recent irrigation project that reinstalled new irrigation. And so as we're looking at how we can stitch a new design in, that orange dashed line and everything north of there, we're considering leaving that alone. And so that would be existing infrastructure to remain. And between the two concepts, there's a little nuance to the exact location of that line. But we're working on stitching in new programming centrally in the park and then tying it into the existing walks into the northern fields. On the south side, there are some existing infrastructure that we are also studying to keep. To note, on the left side, the west side of the site in the existing playground, some new swings were recently installed. So we're working with the manufacturer to see if those can be kept and or moved. There's also the playground improvements, that larger circle on the west side that were done in around 2021. And so we're again studying the potential to keep those, to move them in one of the concepts. Right now they're not accessible, so working with the manufacturer to see if there's potential that additions can be made to those to make those accessible and what sort of surfacing needs to happen. So all of those existing playground equipment is being studied at the moment through these concepts to see what potential moving forward they have in the design. And then to note the parking lot there on the east side of the site, in both concepts, we have looked at reducing parking, just with the acknowledgement that this is no longer a school site, that larger parking area may not be needed. And so I have that highlighted as existing to remain. So we are, in both options that you'll see, have some remnant of that parking remaining, but are reducing the number in both those options, so there's not quite as much. So largely that's the approach in analyzing the existing conditions on site and trying to understand what can be stitched in with the new programming. We'll touch on as well, there is the existing alligator on the playground that we would like to reuse, and it ties in with some of the overall theme and concepts that I'll share tonight. There's also the peace pole in the center photo. Some analysis has been done on that, and it's deemed in poor condition to actually keep that specific pole. But the idea of recreating that in some fashion on site is something we're exploring. And still working through, how many sides that pole has, what languages are included on that peace pole. And there's an opportunity in the open house if anyone would like to comment on that as well on the existing conditions board. I'd be happy to hear that. So what we heard, these are not all, but general themes that we heard from the October community meeting that was held here, as well as what we've heard from the Neighborhood Advisory Group. I've broken those down into 4 main themes. The first being the school was more than a school. It served as a meeting place for interactions. We heard stories of parents dropping off kids at school and there was a large walking contingency to the school, and that it was an opportunity to interact with neighbors, chat after the kids were dropped off, and really a place for interaction and social engagement. With that as well, a large number of folks we've talked to have a direct tie to the school in some way, whether they went there themselves or have had children that have gone there. We've interacted with people who have worked at the school. So a lot of fond stories and memories we've heard about the school. We've also heard about the wish to include a wide range of play for all age groups. And so understanding, as we're getting into the concepts that we want to explore different zones of playgrounds that can be used for different age groups, have a wide variety of programming, as well as incorporate accessible play. So there truly is programming for all included in the park. There's also opportunities for sport courts and multi-use fields. I mentioned that multi-use field on the north side is being used currently. We've heard some comments about other programmed courts, and then also rebuilding of the tennis court that we know is going to happen. So there's opportunities for areas of passive play as well as more programmed active play areas, and working on balancing that throughout the design. The third there is remembering the past. So I touched on how the school, a lot of folks have fond memories. There's been kind of wide interest in the potential reuse of existing school features. I mentioned the alligator, the different play structures. The bricks have been brought up, which I know the deconstruction team is still exploring, if that's feasible. So there's elements from the previous site and school that may be able to be carried over into the playground. We also heard a lot about Camp Swampy. If you're familiar with the school, that was what I guess translate to a field day that I'm familiar with. So an opportunity that it was a wide variety of events that happened. It was tied to the alligator mascot of the school. And it was really a fun and exciting event for the students and teachers. And then related to specific park character, we heard a lot about the want and need for pads and connectivity in studying the design. Shade was something that was brought up quite a bit. Gathering areas and places for interaction. And then, as I mentioned, the potential use of school or a mascot theme. So as we started, these are a lot of the comments, again, not all, but the large themes that we've heard over the past few months as we've started to move on from existing conditions and analysis and move into conceptual design. And so these themes here, we really tried to keep them in mind and have them translate into the design in some way. So how the school was more than a school translates into the design. As we were looking at these concepts, it was about providing opportunities for interaction and gathering areas. Just as the school provided that input, or that opportunity, the park can serve in the same way. But we also view the park, especially one that's tucked into the neighborhood, as an extension of the yard. People like to sit and gather and play, and you can view this as a large backyard or front yard for the community. Also, in the same way the school was comfortable and inviting for students and teachers, we want to make sure that this space is scaled correctly and is comfortable for the community to interact with. In looking at providing a range of play, we explored, are currently exploring making playground equipment more accessible if that existing equipment can be used. We're looking at offering both playground and then field and court programming to provide a wide variety, and also opportunities to make different programming multi-use. So the ability for paved surfacing, for example, to be a basketball court as well as a small roller skating area, or have hopscotch and other games. So, providing the space that can be used for multi-use features. And remembering the past, Camp Swampy influenced both of our playground themes, and pretty excited to share with you all tonight the two different concepts and how that swamp theme ties in. I think there's a real opportunity, again, to kind of nod to the old school site and the mascot, as well as really be really creative in how that swamp or camp theme is carried through in the concepts. And then I've mentioned it a little bit, but a way to tie in the past as well is reuse of the existing alligator and peace pole and other features if feasible through our analysis. And then the park character, as I mentioned, some of the northern paths we're looking at maintaining. So as we look at different networks and loop paths, making sure that we provide various options of walking, that they tie in, and there's a really seamless connectivity throughout the park and a balance between the different zones. We looked at providing a pavilion and trees to provide more shade in key areas and for areas of gathering. And then also wanted to organize programming to have strong relationships with like programming and opportunities for spill out spaces, and then balance turf and natural areas, again, trying to meet some of those goals of water reduction and responsible development. All right, now the fun part. We're going to get into the concepts. Before I do, I just want to touch on that both concepts do have the same programming. So, we're not looking at comparing a lot of different programming between the two. Largely, it's the same programming, but they're organized in different ways. And so as we get into the open house tonight, looking for feedback from you all on what your likes and dislikes are between the two concepts. And that purpose tonight is to get preferences on what you like and dislike between the two plans. These concepts aren't completely separate and are going to move forward in a separate fashion. What we're looking for tonight and to get feedback and continue feedback from the community is potentially there's elements from one concept that the community likes, and then there's elements from the other that are largely liked. And so there's opportunities moving forward that those can be combined, and there's a preferred concept that's developed moving forward for the site. And so, you won't see that they're exactly the same, but there's opportunity to provide feedback tonight on what shape they may take. Okay, so concept one. This concept looks at reducing the parking slightly, both by pulling in the western edge, and I can point, pulling in the western edge, as well as removing the parking from the middle bays that currently exist. If the grading works and some of that utility infrastructure analysis, there could be an opportunity to do a garden or a bioswale in that area to soften that space and reduce parking. Just north of there, you'll notice that the tennis courts remain in the same location they are today. These will be rebuilt with a post-tension slab for the longevity of the courts, but are still organized with direct adjacency to the parking lot in their existing location. Moving into the site, the existing hill and paths, as I mentioned, directly west of the tennis courts remain. And then this concept really focuses on creating a core play area central to the park. In this concept, the existing play structures and swings are shown to remain. Again, this is still being studied, and those are shown in the brown areas. So you can see maybe it's better. The two existing 2021 playground improvements here, and then the newly replaced swings here. And so this concept wasn't trying to completely redo a whole new play area. It really looked at building off of existing if those are able to remain. And so directly adjacent to the existing 2021 improvements, a multi-use court space can be used. This could be home to two sized accordingly for two basketball courts. and it can also be an area for inline skating, scooters. There could be areas for hopscotch, chalk, and other activities to happen on those multi-use courts. On the backside of the existing play structures, a natural area with a path coming through different landforms can be a fun kind of play circuit for kids to take as they connect to different areas of the playground. In the middle here, we're calling a parent hub, but just an opportunity to have a really densely shaded and planted area that could have a lot of seating and organized both centrally to look out on this new play space to the east, have views towards the existing swings and have views towards the existing play structures. So really this center area that can be for gathering there in the play space. And then just to the east of that, we really got creative in thinking about the swamp theme. And so the idea that there could be this abstracted large alligator that could happen in that play space through different synthetic turf landforms. It could be a great opportunity to have little climbing structures or little steppers with that. There could be a log pile and different areas for climbing with nets. And then we really like the idea of really being playful with the swamp theme. You can see dotted through little circles. So the idea that there could be some colorful posts with cattail like structures to really tie in that area and also carry those over into the existing play zone. And then just to the east of that, the peace pole here, the idea that that's incorporated near a new pavilion. And that pavilion space opens up to a new multipurpose field on the south. Really has that great spill out space, as well as is tied closely to the parking lot for different events that people want to park for there. And then on the west side of the site, to create a buffer in a naturalized zone, we explore the idea of having landforms in this natural grass area, a natural area that could come through and really tie the north to the south side of the site. So what that might look like, here's just a quick sketch of being playful with that alligator element. So you can see these different landforms that might come through the poured in place surfacing. There's opportunities to be really creative with the colors of the surfacing. It could look like a stream or a river that's coming through the play element. You can see the cattails. There's great opportunity to be colorful with those and really tie in the theme of the swamp or the camp throughout the playground. And these mounds can be really playful and fun. There's opportunities to have, as I mentioned, climbing elements on them. There could be some tunnels, just a really fun play circuit that really ties the overall theme together. And so thinking about, putting some of those concepts to pictures, as I mentioned, the idea that the sport courts and basketball courts could be multi-use, both for basketball and skating. Within the playground, the opportunity for colorful cattails and poles that could really bring an art element to the park and really tie the theme together. The synthetic turf mounds to really create that abstracted alligator, and you can see an example here as well. There's fun and creative ways to stitch in that landform. So the playground's not on one level plane, but the opportunity for kids to get up and over, to stand on top and observe, and really provide a lot of play variety in the playground. The existing alligator, as I mentioned, could be seamlessly stitched into a swamp theme in many different areas. And then the idea, as I mentioned, of that parent hub, really having this really core zone that looks out over the different play areas, opportunities for parents to gather and socialize, but also have an eye on the overall play. And as I mentioned, this concept does look at keeping the 2021 playground improvements. That's not the same for the next concept I'll share. And so that is one big difference between the two. But just as a reminder, we are still studying with the play manufacturer and installers on what are the potential possibilities of keeping those and incorporating more accessible play to them. And then this is concept 2. So again, as I mentioned, the programming is the same on here, but the different areas and program elements are organized differently. So I'll walk through the site in the same manner and show the concept here. So starting again with the parking lot, this parking configuration is even further reduced than the one that was previously shown. It really pulls back the western edge and really shortens it to the east to get about 20 spaces there. What that allows is to open up what was previously part parking and part turf area to have a picnic grove directly adjacent to the parking and drop-off area. So this could be just an open turf field that's really shaded, has a lot of picnic tables and opportunities for seating and gathering there. Directly north of the parking, you'll notice that the existing tennis courts are no longer there. The idea here is that this could become a little bit of a small sitting area, a nature hub. If a parent has a child who's at practice on the upper fields, they can utilize this zone and be watching them, as well as it could have some small play elements. Not as active as a playground, but just some small steppers and seating to allow for a smaller child to still be active and have some play elements there while a parent may be watching another child. The tennis courts are moved to the south end of the site, so these would be, again, completely rebuilt in a new location. We explored the idea that the basketball courts could also be grouped there. So you really have these sport courts grouped together. You'll notice that the basketball courts in this concept are shrunken down. The previous concept have 2 and a little additional space for multi-use. This one looks at reducing that, but still having a basketball court organized with the tennis courts. Moving into the center and core area of the park that's adjacent to the existing hill and paths, the picnic shelter and pavilion is moved further in to the site in this concept. It still does have a direct connection and spill out space to a multi-purpose field, but it is more directly tied into the playground as opposed to the other one that was a little more separated and closer to the parking lot. So this provides an opportunity for seating. The main walk from the parking comes directly through and then ties into other loops of the park. And then the pavilion has a direct adjacency to the playground. So this playground is completely rebuilt. You'll notice that the previous 2021 improvements that were shown to be kept in the last concept I shared are removed with the possibility that those can't be reused. So with that, we looked at really moving that playground a little further away from the edge of the western site and really creating it as this core element centrally located in the park. Again, the same theme of camp, swampy, and that swamp theme carry through. We really like the idea of exploring the idea of a deck structure that could be like a dock that's attached to the pavilion, and really a nice spill out space with some seating and overlooks. The playground, again, could be somewhat of a river that's carried through with opportunities for small bridges and different kind of play zones on either side of that. We looked at having some climbing structures here on the right side of the playground, and then the opportunity to potentially do some sort of larger structure. It could be like a tree house, it could be different platforms, but the idea that there's a larger structure that, again, provides climbing, there could be a slide, and some different views out and over the playground. And then similar to the last concept, but a little more in a larger area. Again, we have the natural area that's on the west side of the site, and then wrapping the south side out to the corner. We did play around with landforms a little differently in this concept. There could be some small landforms out in the turf area that provide a little bit of buffer from the roadway, as well as landforms back in the natural area to provide a little bit of a up and down as someone's using the trails. So here's the idea of that playground as you're at the pavilion looking out over that play space. I mentioned the deck, or the idea of this boat or boat dock that extends to provide a view over that river. There could be opportunities for seating there, opportunities for accessible paths that come out and around and then get you to different areas of the play space. You'll notice the bridge in the middle that provides that connection across the river and to connect the different play areas. And then the opportunity, as I mentioned, for a larger structure in the back that could be a little bit elevated and provide a view over the playground. With the river idea too, there's opportunities to have different boulder seating. There could be some alligators or different animals, footprints of animals that are incorporated into that for somewhat of a playful or educational experience. And again, just tying these different areas into that overall theme. So some of the conceptual photos for this, you'll see there in the middle that blue stream through the green. So the idea that you can be playful and creative with the surfacing, opportunities for the bridge across the water. You'll see up here on the right the idea that there could be that larger structure to provide the different play features there. The camp theme could again be incorporated into this through some teepees or some other abstraction of the camp dotted throughout. Climbing structures and the ability to have elevated deck platforms, somewhat of a tree house in that. And then that family nature hub that I described that would be on the east side of the site that would have some smaller seating and play elements. These steppers here or this low climbing net, those could be some of the elements at a little smaller scale that could be incorporated into that space to again just have a little bit of play without being the main playground. So at this point, we'll flip around the boards and allow opportunities for you all to comment. We have circle stickers at each of the stations here. If you like a photo, you can put, or if you like a photo or a certain area of the plan, you can put a sticker note on there. All colors are equal, so there's no difference between those. We also have sticky notes. If you want to write some comments or provide any feedback that way, you can write that and then stick them on the board as well. And so we'll break for a bit here and come back together at 6:40 to talk about timeline and next steps and any questions or discussion. So if you guys want to take this time to comment on the boards, again, you'll notice that the concepts are similar in programming, but they're organized differently. So the goal tonight is to get some feedback moving forward on the likes and preferences and dislikes of these different plans, and that'll help inform how the different designs of the plans can be incorporated into one another to get to a preferred design. And we'll also be around too if you have any questions during that time, so appreciate it. Would you mind? Oh, yeah.
tennis courts.
Uh-huh.
Are those going to be pickleball lines too, or did they talk about that at last meeting?
They did talk about it a little bit. They get brought up.
I think that was a resounding no.
Yeah, at this time, it's my understanding that they're just to remain tennis courts. I think
Do they have a reason for that?
I think they said it's too close to the house.
that is part of it is the noise level. Yeah.
Even if it's moved to that other spot?
Well, there's houses up near the
Well, yeah, there's more down here. Because I think there's, if it is too close, but has to be some kind of like space, right? 200 feet or 200 yards.
Yeah, a lot of jurisdictions that I've seen recently are doing 400 plus. It just depends on the city. I think currently my understanding is that it would just be tennis courts only, for the noise and also because it is a neighborhood park. Pickleball often draws a larger crowd. You have to deal with parking and whatnot. And I'm not familiar with all of the city's recent projects, but I believe there have been pickleball courts added in or are slated to in some capacity nearby. And so that was the thought at the time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Instead of what I thought they might do. Can I just
Mm-hmm.
But on the pavilion, did you guys put any consideration to something like Squires or an upgraded pavilion like that? Are you familiar with Squires?
I'm not familiar with Squires.
Squires is a very nice pavilion. It's over off the Lowell, and it has
Okay.
it has hard bathrooms. And everything.
Okay. I know.
It's not as big as that fall,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't.
There was a picture of it.
I don't think it's going to be a little park, so
Yeah.
maybe not.
I know. Bathrooms. I think.
No problem.
Yeah, and I think just looking at ongoing maintenance as well as I believe the city has some standard thresholds of, a neighborhood park has a certain type of programming, and then when you get to larger community and regional parks, that's when larger courts and bathrooms and those sort of things are included.
We only have 30. That's what's good.
Yeah.
Bathrooms.
But so at this point we're just looking at the idea of just an overhead shade structure, whether that gets upgraded a little bit to have stone base or there's potential there within the budget.
Okay. All right. Well, of course, they're not going to get rid of that. Right?
There were
Steal it.
lots of input about water features, but I hear you saying a lot about water conservation. Is that not something that is an option?
I don't believe. I don't believe at this point. Just looking at cost of install as well as ongoing maintenance, as well as being a neighborhood park. Water features are typically reserved within the city, threshold to be more community or regional type parks. We have thrown around the idea that some like built-in misters could be incorporated into the pavilion. Still studying that a little bit, but in terms of kind of a hard piped or like water play feature like a splash pad. That's not something.
Are you the parks in the area?
A little bit.
And the one right by City Hall,
Uh-huh.
that's kind of a lazy river
Okay.
kind of thing. I mean, shallow, but water just kind of flows through it.
Okay.
It's confident
Oh,
and stuff like
that's fun.
And then it has the ones that which used to be over at the theater, and they took that whole feature out, and then so that was part of the incorporated. So I don't think it's any of that.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's not something with the scale that we're looking at this point. Do you get an online question?
Yeah, the land size. Was it 40 by 40 that we had talked about?
It's all going to depend on budget. Right now, I think we have I think we were looking at roughly a 30 by 50.
Oh, okay.
And they're slightly different between the two concepts.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And one
I like this. I know you said you don't want.
That's the thought now with the budget. If there's opportunities to have another, that could be explored, but we're thinking with the budget, that would be one.
Right, and that's why I'm saying, so the parking lot subsides this, and this. And then this, it's just like, this is going to be very, used very little in my opinion, because these are back neighbors' houses and stuff. I don't think a lot of people are gonna sit here and go from here, walk in here. This is a better idea.
Moving the,
use.
tennis courts and such,
Down to the south end.
puts them right up against the houses, closest to the houses. This feels like
Yeah.
Whereas now, they're just kind of by the street.
Right. Right now they're across the
But that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, you're
But
gonna
this
park
is
here and
across
come
the
in
street.
here.
Yeah.
Right. It feels like it's backing right up to those houses on the corner.
Yeah, that'd be a great point to add to the plan if you have a moment. That's something we've considered. I know there's an easement there and over at the power lines, and I think somewhat of a drainage ditch along that border. So there's opportunities potentially that the tennis courts could still slide a little further north, maybe the basketball could stack on the opposite side.
Yeah, well,
But that's a great point. It's something we'll explore as we lay that out.
it's organic, yes.
Both of these say 20 parking spaces. Say one was
Our kids is what it was.
Another note, would you put on your list?
I guess they were the same, just I figured.
Oh, do two. Oh, do two. That's a good idea. There's a lot of kids that take that.
There are. Yeah. So that's a good thing to know. Yeah. So that's why we're gonna be. Right. And if
sketches were they were like a great extra add.
It's a great way to
That means like
put a little realistic, more realistic visualize the space for it. Really helpful.
Like the tunnel through his nose.
And I think there are a lot of trees like they can't really do our best. I don't live along here, so.
I know.
Like this would be really like sick event, like you also will come to too. Well, it's
Oh, this one's more feasible, in my opinion.
the last one went to Island
Right.
I mean, it's got, it was a lot better.
Well, it's because of the parking too. The parking is gonna supplement everything. The short walk here in the day. Those are the items you're gonna use.
Ideally.
I mean, that's gonna be the highlight.
We do have a lot of
Parking.
All sides with walkers and a lot of.
How many dogs are in there? Where they are parked?
Dogs everywhere. The only thing that the comment was on is not having it that you can call it Sunday, because at the night, you don't know if that's inside.
Well, I like the deck idea, I mean, this is, that's actually, that's the center, that'll get everybody.
Yeah, there's,
Eyes are tunnel, that's awesome.
it could be really fun to play with. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, barring any feature for these playgrounds could be, so you could take that out there and put it, have that. And I did definitely make some headway in talking to the manufacturers of those, both the swing set and the other one. sounds like any sort of move of the equipment will void warranty, so they need to be left in place. But then it also sounds like in place there are opportunities to make them more accessible. And so she was going to send me some thoughts on that.
It was interesting to hear that adult access. This one's more favorable.
From the outside in, or just that center pavilion?
No, just the whole layout of that part instead, and they're not tied to that existing play equipment because they're part of the PCA, so that's an interesting. Explain to them why.
I think this one feels more like it's expanded the elementary school. Yeah. And that it's more adult. Or multi-generational.
This one feels like we expanded into the space that we're needing by getting a building. This one feels like we're still working around some imaginary buildings. Yeah, like that is one way to look at it. And I think like these fields are so big, and I know that this wouldn't be as big, but this leaves so much room for like a full-size soccer game, like all the other football. Like, lots of kids go play football. So you don't necessarily need that large of a space on this side. It's fine. This one.
More so than it's a lot of work. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I get. I appreciate. So I can appreciate the
My
thing.
daughter uses it.
It also does just seem kind of a waste. It's not so much an emotional connection, but it's a waste. Right? They're relatively new.
Yeah.
All the kids in the neighborhood love them.
Right. So yeah, again, there's and it's a it could be a good start for a bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a little bit of both because at the same time, like this is what the current ones look like, and everybody's like, we want to keep them, which is great. But then they also say we don't want the hard plastic right here. Like, we want something that looks more natural, and that's what that looks like. So I like the idea of like the blues and greens in the new stuff that could help tie it in without being that hard plastic.
Is this a matter of if the structure is not able to be kept, is it automatically defaulting to concept 2?
No. There's, if these cannot be kept, there's exploration of how, this play area might be still up to us. But it's not a default to that one by any means.
Probably, but
Yeah, there's no set number. As we're working through concepts, a lot of that ties to the budget, between the play equipment and the investigation. This concept explored a little bit more idea of more trees, especially thinking about picnic road and how it's a very safe playground, where this is a little more open. So again, a slight variation there. Typically that's all ties in. They're in the ballpark of each other. Keeping existing equipment allows you to spend less dollars on new stuff, of course. But there's also that element if you're going to make these accessible, that comes at a price attached to that. Refurbishing those and getting different ramps and structures up to them. So there's a price involved with either direction. We're still studying.
Oh, they do burnouts and stuff? Awesome, thank you so much for
How much, I guess, like landscaping, do you think there will be out
So I guess each concept is slightly different. This darker green is the idea is we don't, budget-wise and long-term maintenance-wise, we don't have real large swaths of the natural areas are a little easier to take care of. That's like a quarterly mow, essentially. If you have more irrigated and in garden life. That's ongoing maintenance. So, we really did try to concentrate those around the pavilion and playground, and then let some of these other areas be more.
And in both instances, I thought I heard it was going to be 20 by 50, the pavilion.
Depends. For the scale we've done now, this is a 25
But you
by
wrote
25.
two basketball
That one's a little more rectilinear.
That's why I put the
And
stick
that
on that.
ties to that dock or that was on a 20 by 50, I believe. So I think that general size would likely be the scale.
They're
But
talking about a multi-use, so
configuration might change a little bit.
and then skate park, actually, one of the parks has indoor skating, outdoor skating.
We did do an analysis of looking at just what kind of programming and structures. I know they have some shade structures up there, maybe two, maybe one. Can't remember.
But no, I just like that. There was like a reduction in play equipment on that park is every afternoon.
Really?
If we do something like that, there's a line for the swings.
Really?
And there was a reduction in the number of swings, which really makes the situation awkward.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's what I'm saying, we just got brand new ones, kids get in here.
Some of the trees that are overhanging the benches really help. I've never seen it with those, when people go, they use the pavilion kind of as a shade park for like birthday parties and stuff like that. Right? The skate park is the trees, the natural shade helps for those benches. But like just the reduction in like the size and accessibility of the equipment there was
Was it kind of at the end of its life cycle and degraded, so they took it out? Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's cute. I like that. The replacement, like they reduced the number of swings, which were already,
Gotcha.
in the high demand for that play area, that play space,
No,
and
or just full.
the type of equipment and the area it's in. A lot of like teenagers playing too, and now they can't really play with that
As it
equipment,
does.
so they mix it up.
That's what I'm wondering,
Like
maybe the
them
pavilion should
finding
be.
those parts of the equipment that aren't
Interesting.
on
Interesting.
I'm getting.
Are you guys in the neighborhood?
I get out of the car, I walk over, and I don't like it.
We're invested.
Yeah, it's been fun to see through the public meetings that community really is invested and engaged, and it doesn't always happen, and so it's nice to see.
Do they use it then? Yeah.
Oh, you can't wait for it to be done.
When I was in session, a lot
Right.
of local teams practice.
What do you do with that?
We don't have basketball. So I think that's also conservative. Yeah. Just because of it being like a.
My daughter learned to ride her bike. Right. So this part, so I think of the idea like during the summer.
But I also live.
Hopefully another
Yeah, right, my skateboard guy.
That's what we do a lot at the other park.
The other park has
We do a
full
big giant
loop.
loop on the bike.
Yeah.
I'll write that down so I don't put it on the board.
Yeah, there's a big.
Yeah, you don't have to go next to the street,
Oh.
which really helps with early learning bike riding.
They need something to be honestly.
Yeah. They have grass landmarks.
Yeah.
The area's just so small, you can walk to any of those houses.
That's a good point.
There was
But
some
that's
time
if you
when we
live
took
here.
on like the main,
Yeah, but even
connecting path between
I
the
live
parks
over.
and like, there's some serious cyclists on those,
You can walk to
Yeah.
city
those
parks.
paths.
Because there's
I
a
live
connection
suburban.
out to
It's
that.
like
Is that a trail?
Yeah, there's people that
Yeah, that's the
ride
trail.
that like they're
That's the
Yeah.
trail out here.
Yeah.
They're cycling through
So
the
if
path.
you
big
get on this
drive,
trail, you go down this
That
one.
big
So
drive over
it's
here.
trail actually.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has hills.
Right,
Yeah.
and the bridge goes over to the city park, right
Down.
here, right here.
And again, we're not.
That's right.
I just like you to post it.
I like the big alligator lot. I think if the budget comes down to it, I would do away with the cattails and the big alligator.
I'm probably about that. I like the idea of keeping stuff if we keep it to save money, but I don't just a quick or like a memory.
Fun and playful.
Yeah, but it was there from school. That was school.
Right, which is why I also feel like.
So So,
Is there any code from this
But
pipeline as EV charging like there is for buildings?
I think that's just dependent on the municipality. I know like Denver has started implementing that for at least federal and like government building sites. I'm not sure on if something like this would, I guess A, if that's a requirement, B, would a site like this that already has existing parking be grandfathered in ahead of, a site that is adding parking now that might have those restrictions, but that's something I can look into.
I think you guys can ask questions. I think it's a unique opportunity because there's a giant opportunity.
So I think the one,
Entire building. And so all
this one is, the other one
I
is.
like the pavilion right here though.
Yeah.
Sure, you want 4 minutes or whatever, but I'm saying, if I gotta go,
Could be land on
I'll get my car and go so
I think
right here.
as of now, the thought is that it would just be solely tennis,
Well, that's what
both
I'm saying.
because
Pavilion,
of its proximity to houses, the scale of the park, would attract more people into it as opposed to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And the city has other facilities and larger parks that do have pickleball.
Okay, sorry. I'm gonna stick that in the chat.
That's why I don't like downlines, because that's just. I got an e-bike. I can tell you my e-bike goes 30 miles an hour.
It's pretty slick.
Yeah, but now they're trying to set restrictions, speed limit on the trails, and I think it's unfair because when those people are walking their dogs, a dog can run 20 miles an hour. He can't catch me at 30. Just so you know, I mean, then the other thing is too, it's supposed to, there's a little bell and stuff like that, and have people walk their dogs, and then they get started. Then the coyotes too. The coyotes have a funny way of getting into the trails. They follow the waterways and open trail spaces. And I don't know if you know that. They do. Here, coyotes? Oh, I know.
They live in the back. Because it backs right up to that trail.
Right, that's why I was saying, because City Park right here, that's where they're coming in. Because the waterway.
We did have someone bring that up, particularly talking about the natural areas, not green. Yeah. And so, the idea there, this picture.
I think about
That it would be natural grasses, drought tolerant, but
They're
still
yeah,
too
but
low.
they're expensive though. I'm looking at the city. They spent like over $1 million on stuff, and it looks like weeds.
You
know what I'm talking about, right?
I think, well, I don't know the specific project, but I know
Yeah.
bad perception, particularly.
Because the waterworks place, they have the rights to it. They can do $900,000, and it don't look like $900,000.
Sometimes just the establishment period takes a bit to grow in, so there is.
You got to realize people want everything yesterday.
I know.
So not today, they want it yesterday. So this plan is by far the best. The only thing, I'm trying to persuade them that this pavilion needs to be here. Because, well, I feel it should be like in here. I'm older, and I'm using the old man Trump card. So if I come here, the other thing is too, Oakhurst has three sections of that park. One of them they actually rent. So to offset, and I know they don't get much, but if you had something like this, it would draw those rentals on the weekends. It'd probably you guys would like it because people.
No, I would not want people being able to reserve the pavilion for a small neighborhood.
Right, they're already doing it now.
So don't bring your problems
I
to
know.
our park.
I'm not bringing it. I'm just saying it's a good use for it, though. People have barbecues. They have the volleyball fields. Playground. Same thing. This park isn't just yours. It's ours. Let me say that.
I'm not sure how the city manages or approaches that at all. What scale of park? But so, I guess to revisit your point, like, you're thinking, you like the idea of
Well,
pavilion that's closer to.
it's no different here. I like this picnic grove, but what I like here too is you come here, a lot of people are gonna go right here, very first thing. Then the touring over here, this is a great idea. I like this, but this doesn't make any sense to me because if there is people using tennis courts, it is noisy, I can tell you, this tennis court and that basketball, it will address some noise, but I just think that because of the parking, this location, this just doesn't seem. If I was coming to this park, I'm gonna come here first. So what I would like to see is that there's like a meeting spot here. And then as you go into this here, I don't know where's the pictures that, so these pictures would be from here. Yeah, they have this over at the train station. So the kids don't stay on there.
A lot of times you get it's our work.
But see, this concept, I don't know, I just like this. You're presenting this well, because it's a cartoon, but just having that platform with this maybe in the viewpoints. The viewport. If that design were real. You can't do it because this and this and that. That's why I'm saying with that here, this is perfect.
Yeah. I mean, there are opportunities, you know, this view is just showing.
No, I kind of know.
Yeah, you can have, still incorporate those elements into different pockets around.
So the alligator is where? Is it right? It's right here.
Yeah, so this concept has the idea of that larger abstracted mound of alligators that could be, you know, a little bit of a play route and climbing.
So this one wouldn't be the elevated.
This one like was exploring the idea that they could be smaller steppers, maybe just the head or the body.
Yeah. Right.
Whereas this is, you know, the larger play element.
With tunnels.
So what do you see lean toward?
They want concept. This one.
No, not necessarily. This feels like a bigger space than this. It feels kind of small, but then your drawing makes it seem like a little bigger. So maybe it's just a scale kind of thing that I'm not picking up on.
I'd love to have the picnic grove from that one over here.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and that's you know, kind of a fun term for this concept. By all means, like, you know, pieces of this can be incorporated here, and if this natural area here and something that's light, we have to add it here. There's opportunities to kind of stitch those two together.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that the people that live in those places wouldn't mind from the kids' noise that they've had for the last 40 years. I really like the island somewhere. I love that.
Do people complain about the noise in that tennis court?
No, not from tennis.
Nobody's played on it in the last 2 years.
Well, that's what how I
now
know.
that it's gotten redone, it gets a lot of traffic.
Yeah, I guess I don't know about current conditions that have been redone, but it seems like the comments that we've heard is that it's been used and it isn't much of a noise issue at all.
Right. Well, tennis isn't as loud as pickleball, but I like this right here because, like I say, it's just if I was coming here in any city park, I'm riding my e-bike. It goes 90 miles. I go to Boulder. Oh yeah. I even showed the police. I go, I can throw this over the fence. I can catch anyone. You can't outrun me. And I'm an old guy. Just go.
I like the tennis courts out here versus the nature hub up there. Because when you're coming around that corner, it can be hard to see. If that kid's running there, right I mean, you'll have kids on the field, but it's the street, the visibility is.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit, and put in some kind of like a small rock kind of thing, or like not a fence, but like some kind of barrier.
Conceptually, we looked at having a shrub planted buffer, so it really does, something more visible for the shoulder or a small
Playing. I do like the larger basketball court, and the idea of like an outside court.
See, this trail too is more versatile too versus.
Yeah, we had some comments that
Yeah,
there could be opportunity to
so
create
this one comes here, this one goes here, that one goes there, that one's a nice path, so that is a better.
Yeah.
I'm an engineer, so that's why these things like either they make sense or they don't make sense.
I'm a product designer, so I spend a lot of time thinking about how to make something great for my client.
Right.
It's like my whole job.
Yeah, but see, they're putting all this out here, and I just don't think that unless you know it's there.
Okay, the site's big, but it's not that big.
I know. Well, no, I know that. But once you start putting these obstructions, this, you're not going to see. You might see that right there, and that's a landform, and then if they take that out, because I don't know, that's what I'm saying too. How many dog people we have? Because we have tons of them. We have a lot. And the biggest problem we have is when we fix up the dog trails.
We do have quite a few stations with those.
Do ya?
People do. Yeah.
Yeah, not all of them. This is a nice trail. Oh, it's
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate a great conversation and feedback around the boards. As I mentioned, just to kind of wrap up the final thoughts on these comments that we've received tonight. First of all, appreciate all the engagement and excitement about the project. It really does make our job easier and make it fun for us to see a community engaged and really, tied to the outcome of the project. As I mentioned, the programming between the two concepts is largely the same, but moving forward, based on all the great feedback tonight, we'll be working on developing one preferred concept. And so we'll be coming back with that. And just to reiterate, there's we've heard a lot of great ideas between the two, and so some ideas from one can be added to the other, and vice versa, to really find a plan that works overall and meets the community's needs. So I do really appreciate the feedback tonight. So to wrap up, just wanted to talk about timeline and next steps. So we are in the winter at the second public meeting here. As I mentioned, you can see at the yellow bar below, we've gotten through concepts and are going to really start to hone in on a preferred concept. So it'll be combining these two plans in one preferred plan, taking into account all the feedback we heard tonight. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of analysis that went into the project up front, but we're still working through some of that analysis on the existing play structures and different elements that might be incorporated. So that's all ongoing as we move into preferred concept. We're going to meet one more time with the Neighborhood Advisory Group later on in December, and then really start to work on the design over the winter and into the spring. The final building deconstruction will be sometime in the spring, late spring. And then at that point, we'll have a public meeting, open house to celebrate that milestone, as well as share a final park design. And with the construction anticipated to start in summer of '25. So that's all I had tonight. Again, really appreciate your guys' feedback and great comments. We'll be cleaning up here, but if anyone has anything additional, please feel free to grab me. So thank you much.